Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for attending this presentation. My name is Lauren Silva, and I am from the Crime Victims Council of the Lehigh Valley. If you've been tuning in to some of these other presentations, today we are going to be talking about mindfulness and sort of these things come up in all the previous presentations if you watch them. If not, that's completely okay. We're going to take you on a journey of creating that space and energy to be present with yourself. We're going to talk about some of the emotions and things that follow for us to be able to, adjust to this new world in a sense that we were living in with stress and anxiety. So before we get started, a little bit about us. We are a nonprofit, private, comprehensive organization. We are the local rape crisis and victim services center. So we work with anybody who has been a victim or a survivor of a crime. That could include harassment, theft, robbery, a survivor of homicide, as well as sexual assault. Now, if you are the victim of a crime and a significant other or family members, etc., have been impacted by that crime as well, they can come and receive services. So we are very comprehensive and want to work the best with everybody in our community. We are located in Lehigh and Northampton counties. So if you are familiar with the Lehigh County and Northampton County, we have an office here in Allentown, downtown by the PPL Center. And we also have an office on Northampton Street in Easton. So we are mandated reporters. So what that means is we will not report anything because we do have confidentiality. If you don't want to report your your victimization to the police. However, if you say that you are going to be a harm to self or others, that is when we would have to make a mandated report. Again, our services are at no cost, a confidentiality piece, and if your age is 14 years and older, there's no parental consent required. So we really want to take an empowerment approach of lifting our survivors up and helping them on their journey. So our direct services really helps with that. We offer individual and group services. Now I know our world is in COVID right now, so we are offering a lot of telehealth counseling. You can either meet with somebody over the phone or via video that is confidential and meeting with them that way. We also offer police, court, and hospital accompaniment services. We have advocates in Lehigh and Northampton counties that can help you through the court process or just be with you during any of the processes. However, if you also have to go to the hospital, an advocate will be able to sit with you during that time as well, just to make sure that you have somebody there and you feel safe. Then this piece here that I do, this outreach and community involvement piece, is primarily reaching out to the community, working with anybody of all ages, and creating the education awareness piece about what is happening around sexual violence, bullying, etc. And coming from a lens of a primary prevention piece in where we want to teach some of those skills, so social emotional learning skills, some of these mindfulness activities that can help prevent a crime happening in the future. So this here is our 24-hour hotline. Really encourage you to write it down and just have it in your back pocket, in your phone. Even though you might not need it, maybe there's somebody that you know who could potentially benefit. This is here at 2 a.m., 4 p.m., midnight, etc. You may call this number And if you feel unsafe, you just need to talk about what has happened. We are here for you, and we want to make sure that you're safe. And if anything, also potentially help you get some of the support that you need. So let's get into the program. This is a lot about mindfulness and our emotions and just reverberating our positive energy, right? It's free of charge. So, how can we all uplift each other and also be present with ourselves? Because a lot of this stuff starts with us. So, what is an emotion? It is a strong feeling that can derive from circumstance or a mood or relationships with others, right? It's something that arises spontaneously rather through your conscious. And it's affected by also the physiological change. You're noticing is your heart rate increasing, your breathing, are you sweating? Do you clench your jaws, your fists? Do you feel flushed? Right? So emotions are judgments about the extent that the current situation meets your goals. Emotions help us survive, and they exist thanks to evolution. So they act as triggers to help us to react to situations that may cause us harm. Feeling anger triggers a response potentially ready to fight. When we feel fear, we try to get ourselves out of that situation. And on the other hand, maybe feeling happy, that then can motivate us to pursue the activity that made us feel like that. So happiness is an evaluation of feeling happy, right? You got a test, you got 100. Sadness then is also an evaluation of feeling sad. Example, you got a C on your test. It's important to notice that emotions aren't good or bad. It's important to let them be. And that's where mindfulness starts to come in. Because if we start to suppress some of our emotions, they could have an adverse reaction to us where we maybe flip out or we hold on to anger. So they're signals to us that something is going on and maybe we're out of balance. So, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Now, if you've watched my previous presentations, you might have seen the fight, flight, or freeze. I added fawn because sometimes we talk about it and it's a combination. So I'll talk about that soon, but I want you to remember that this response is your body's natural reaction to danger, and it's a survival instinct. What happens is normal. So sometimes when people experience trauma, so if there's childhood trauma, we develop our patterns and they help us survive. So we might fight, we might flight, or we'll freeze. So when we fight, it's kind of like we're self-preserving us. We're trying to actively be in defense mode. When we're flighting, running away, we're kind of rushing, we're worrying. We can experience all these emotions and these feelings at the same time in a sense they can ebb and flow. And that freeze is when our body is really trying to hold on to further protect ourselves. And the fawn, it's actually that immediately moving, try to please a person to avoid that conflict. So there is key signs that the fawn response is in use when maybe you're looking to others for how to feel in a certain situation. It's difficult to identify how you're feeling even when you're alone. Maybe you feel that you have no identity. You're constantly trying to please people. At the first sign of conflict, your first instinct is to try to appease that angry person. You might, experience unusual emotional responses when issues do not involve people of importance in your life. it could be emotional outbursts to strangers, maybe your teachers, or sudden sadness throughout the day. And it's really important to pay attention to what's going on in your body. You might feel self-anger and guilt for like most or all of the time. Saying no is a challenge. You're overwhelmed. You lack boundaries and are often taken advantage of in relationships. Or you're uncomfortable or threatened when asked to give an opinion. So it's really important to be aware of these things, of what's going on in your body. But again, like I said before, I want you to know that these are normal responses. But the piece of mindfulness really helps us hone in on these and to be able to adjust and how we feel about ourselves. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I know this is a little bit sciencey, but I want you to get a brief understanding of the brain and how that's connected to our emotions, our response, and then how we can trigger that response and become more mindful, right? So the emotional core, that is this orange piece right here. That is our limbic system, okay? It's the feeling part of the brain. When engaged, there's less connection, okay? Our forebrain, this blue coloring piece up here, is our prefrontal cortex. That is what controls our executive functioning, okay? And it's actually the higher part of our functioning. So the role of emotions in our brain is that it triggers a series of reactions within the brain's emotional core, and then it sends signals throughout the body that can change your posture, your facial expression, heart rate, breathing, and your overall awareness. The emotions are important in the social interaction and informing those social connections and how the brain works. So again, what happens when our emotions get triggered is our frontal lobe will go offline and our limbic system takes over. So our logic, our reasoning, our awareness sort of gets shut out and our emotions take over. That's why sometimes we feel all over the place, anxious. We're not quite sure how to respond, and that fight, flight, freeze motion comes into play. Now, this I think is really cool as well. It's called flipping our lid, okay? This is just giving you a visual of what happens when stress shuts down part of our brain. So when our levels get too high, we feel exhausted, we're tired, threatened, and the primitive area of our brain geared towards having survival hijacks that part of the brain that reasons, so that prefrontal cortex. And when we flip out, this is when we're turning on our fight or flight response. So if you make a fist, our thumb is part of the stem and limbic systems, our emotions. And then our fingers is our cerebral cortex. So this is, again, what is housing our logical thinking. And our fingernails helps us with the problem solving. So if we pop open our fingers, this is what happens, that our system gets shut down. So we can't process information. We're not really hearing what others are saying. We're getting tunnel vision. We don't have a lot of empathy because we can't process these pieces of information. So that was just a little, like I said, sciencey thing to kind of understand our emotions, because it's important for us to recognize that our mind and our body are connected. And when we fight with our mind and our body, that is how we increase our stress. We're not mindful. And it really hurts just our overall mental and physical health. So this here is the emotions wheel. We have 7 basic emotions. So happy, surprised, bad, fearful, anger, disgusted, and sadness. That's at the center. And what happens is These are branches of the secondary emotions and then what we call tertiary emotions. So they're combination of these center emotions. And remember, emotions aren't good or bad, but it's that trigger that something is happening. And it's important to acknowledge it. Some emotions are more difficult than others to recognize. So feelings like anger, jealousy, and shame, we know aren't pleasant, but they serve a purpose. So if one of your pets died, would you rather feel grief or happiness, right? Grief is more appropriate, or it seems more appropriate in this situation. So this emotion wheel helps us visualize our emotions and understand the combinations of the emotions creating in this outcome. So, okay, I'm feeling really fearful. Okay, let me see what other emotions are. Maybe I'm actually feeling insecure or rejected. And then that leads me to feeling worthless. So understanding these emotions and these triggers can help us understand our behaviors and the result of these feelings. So we can learn to have healthier behaviors for managing some of these emotions, and we can learn how to control them so they are less intense. And what's really cool too is that this wheel in the center, we have the opposites that are across from each other. So you can see happy, and then right across is angry. So they're opposite of each other, which is sort of helpful too. So can you guess about how many emotions humans have? Let you think for a second. 34,000. That is a lot of emotions to kind of wrap our heads around. So I encourage you to remember this wheel. Remember that your primary emotion is triggering you a secondary feeling, and it's important to tap into that. Now, if feelings could talk, right? Sadness, maybe it's telling you that you should cry. Or your stress, maybe it's trying to tell you to slow down, take one step at a time. That's why it's important to have emotional awareness. That's what it's called when we're trying to understand our feelings. When we are emotionally aware, we choose to listen to what our feelings are trying to tell us rather than ignoring them and completely avoiding them, because we don't want to flip our lid, and we don't want to flip out, right? Basically. So I encourage you to seek to decipher what your feelings are telling you. So some of these steps can help. Tune in to how you're feeling. Take a moment to ask your inner self what you're feeling. Acknowledge and validate. That's very important when we're talking about emotions. All emotions are valid. If you're angry, you're angry. If you're disappointed, you're disappointed. But it's also then what you do with those feelings. Do you choose to stay in those negative feelings, or are you able to turn them around? Identify the source of the feeling, right? You want to try to really figure out what's going on until you really understand why you're feeling this way and what they're telling you. And I encourage you, dare to share, right? We live in a society where feeling a certain way sometimes is seen as negative. And especially when we are navigating learning from home, being more at home with maybe siblings or parents, a lot of people are on their computer. Get your feelings out creates communication and closeness. Or you can write it in a journal, maybe do a blog about it. It's able to just help you get it out of your system so you can start that healing process. So let's kind of talk real quick about social emotional learning. These are essentially life skills. They help us learn critical thinking skills, such as managing emotions, understanding relationships, improving social skills, and making responsible choices. So I'm going to go through some of the core components of SEL and tie them into mindfulness. So that self-awareness is having a clear and accurate understanding of ourselves. We can identify our strengths, our challenges, and we can talk about ourselves in the future and in the present, knowing what we like and what we don't like. The self-management piece is taking responsibility for our own choices. It includes developing that self-control, persevering, even developing study habits, which leads us into the social awareness piece, that we're focusing on ourselves because that's important, but we're also understanding the social world. We're able to read social cues, respond, celebrate our differences. We are in a very strange time here in 2020, navigating, again, all this stuff. Talking to a computer and recording this, is definitely an adjustment for me as well. So navigating those expectations and responding the best in a way to reach you, even though I can't see you. Relationships, right? It's the positive connections we have. Emotions might be running higher than usual, but if we can understand the context of relationships, we can resolve conflict with conflict resolution. We can maintain our friendships. We can communicate with others. And it leads us to have positive decision making. So navigating under peer influence, developing a sense of autonomy, so independence, knowing what we want for our future, and just having those methods to make positive decisions, right? Again, these are life skills. So this is a really great foundation to have when we talk about mindfulness, right? So mindfulness in its simplest sense is to be fully present in your surroundings. I myself am actually trying to work really hard on mindfulness, and I want you to know it will take practice. And it's okay to get frustrated and to know if your thoughts are wandering, but being able to bring that back and not giving up, because mindfulness is a very powerful tool. So what does mindfulness have to do with social emotional learning? While they are separate, social emotional learning uses an outside approach. So it's an approach with a focus on teaching skills, right? We're introducing a skill to recognize the emotion, taking control, using I messages, right? Taking that control before we can move on to the next step. SEL assumes that it's sometimes enough for us to use in all relevant life situations. However, mindfulness works from the inside out. We're drawing on the premise that each of us have an innate, so inborn, capacity for relationship building, as developing empathy and kindness. And by being able to become aware and then embody that connection between our emotions, thoughts, and our bodily sensations, you and I are able to better regulate our emotions and our body. So then that actually impacts our behavior, our stress levels, relationships, and the ability to focus. So it's how we're connecting our inner and outer experiences and finding congruence or equalness between the two. And I know you might be sitting here thinking, well, this is just really silly. This is so boring. But I know I had a tough buy-in process, but the more you sit with it and allow your emotions to just be, the easier things come to be. So again, mindfulness is the process of accepting your thoughts and regulating your emotions. you're able to focus your attention on the present moment. A lot of times we go back in time, we're worrying about the future, and that increases our anxiety, depression, etc. And it's focusing on what's going on now. So are you sitting here thinking, oh man, I really want to know what I'm going to have for lunch or dinner? I can't wait. Or are you really taking in some of this information and bringing yourself back? Are you able to observe and label thoughts and feelings and sensations? It can be a tool to avoid self-criticism and judgment while identifying and managing difficult emotions. So we take on a lot of responsibilities, especially you right now, listening and sitting in one spot, being on a computer. Maybe your eyes hurt, right? You are having a lot of demands, and it increases your stress. So sometimes it's too much, and it inhibits your ability to focus on schoolwork and other responsibilities. So the benefits of being mindful is showing that it can reduce your stress, actually enhance performance and gain insight, and increase our attention to others' well-being, so we can be in tune to other energies that are being put out. And it gives us a time where we can suspend judgment and just have natural curiosity about the workings of the mind, so we can approach experiences with warmth and kindness and better understanding to ourselves and others. And there's research that has actually shown that teenagers are taking a very great interest in mindfulness. So it's your age group that's really kind of propelling some of these things forward. So we're just going to go through some types of mindfulness. There are a lot of things to do with being mindful, and I could have probably talked all day about mindfulness, but I wanted to put some of the important ones here. So grounding. I try to use this a lot, actually. It engages all of our senses. So it's important to note that some people are more prone to worrying and experiencing more anxiety than some of their peers. So whether you are a worrier or a more laid back type of person, our emotions exist on a baseline and a spectrum for how we feel most often. So it's okay if our baseline is prone to fluctuate if we encounter a stressor that makes emotions spike. So this grounding helps us return to our baseline and cope with them effectively. So it helps us be able to bring into our present moment. It can serve as a distraction to bring down our baseline. Again, being mindful that this is what's going on. If using my senses, it isn't something that's comfortable, you can use another form of distraction. Maybe you can look around and say, how many red items do I see? Or count numbers on the phone, just to kind of get your distraction. Name ice cream flavors. Think of your football teams. When you return back to your baseline, though, you can refocus and make better decisions. This image here with the pineapples is a simple 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. It's the 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can taste, and 1 thing you can smell. And it engages you back into your senses. This progressive muscle relaxation is an activity that's helpful when we are feeling anxious. We might feel butterflies in our stomachs, tense muscles, etc. But we're, in a sense, kind of doing a body scan, that we're paying close attention to our muscles when we feel that they are tight and when we are loose. And we can sort of practice them anywhere, anytime. Right now, I'm actually practicing it. I'm squeezing my fists and then I'm relaxing. So you really want to engage almost every part of your body. So you can see this chart here of moving, starting with your breath to your fists, to your stomach, shoulders, your arms, your whole body, and ending with a relaxing breath, crinkling your nose, etc. Just engaging those muscles and feel more present can help us relax. So meditation, they actually say children over 9 start to become more aware of their thoughts. So it's really a great way to practice and hone in on our stress and anxiety. And as you practice, you'll be able to respond better. And like I said, a lot of teenagers are really focused on self-care and trying a lot of these things out. So I encourage you to not just write it off as silly, because again, that's our blocking of our emotions and being mindful to living a full connected life. So meditation is a technique that allows us to quietly contemplate the world around us and reflect on what's happening. We have free versus guided meditation. In essence, free meditation is you sort of just take control and find your space, do what you do to tune in and tune out, focus on your breath, etc. Guided meditations, they're just everywhere, right? You can Google guided meditation. You can go on YouTube. You can listen to somebody guide you through the meditation. And there's meditation about certain things, maybe for sleep, for stress, for having a productive day. Most of them aren't more than a few minutes and increase our mindfulness, but also overall, it can lower our baseline emotions, allowing us to focus more clearly, get better sleep, and have more energy. Because it's estimated that 95% of us run on autopilot. That means, we just go throughout the day, not paying attention, not being mindful, not knowing what's going on. But mindfulness is that executive control and enables intentional actions, willpower, and decisions. So the more we are intentional about it, the more that we notice, the stronger our brain gets. It's important that we do things deliberately and new because we stimulate what's called neuroplasticity. So in our brain, we activate our gray matter, which is full of new neurons that have not yet been groomed for autopilot, so we can build new responses and reactions, and our brain can fire off these responses and build new connections of mindfulness and practicing that meditation. So I know I'm throwing a lot of information out right now, but just focus right now. If you have a mouse, touch your mouse. Bring your focus to the feeling of that mouse, your breath, and what is going on. Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling annoyed? Is this not a presentation that you thought it was going to be? And just sit with that. Allow those thoughts. Try not to judge yourself. And bring yourself back. So here, I'm going to read this. You don't necessarily have to do this right now, but this is an excerpt of a breathing meditation exercise. And spending a few moments deliberately attending to our breath can lower our heart rate and just have an overall calming effect. So sit in a comfortable posture with your spine upright and your shoulders rolled down and back. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you, and just allow your breath to be natural. As best you can, bring your attention to your breath, noticing when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. See if you can notice what your breath feels like in your nose, as the air goes in and then comes out over the lips. See if you can notice what your breath feels like in your chest. Perhaps you sense that expansion of the chest on the inhale and the fall on the exhale. You actually may find yourself thinking about breathing, but see if you can focus on the actual sensations. What does it feel like right now in your body as you breathe? If you'd like, see if you can notice what your breath feels like in your belly. Noticing how the belly expands as you inhale and softens as you exhale. You can place your hand on your stomach and chest to get that sensation. You may also be feeling and able to notice sensations of the breath elsewhere in your body. For a few more moments, just try to let your attention rest on your breath wherever you notice it the most. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So I hope you think about this or potentially revisit if you did not try it, or maybe you tried it but it was a little distracting with me talking. But again, it's just connecting your mind and your body. So how can we though then be mindful in general throughout the day? So mindful wake up. Start with a purpose, right? Intention refers to the underlying motivation for everything we think, say, or do. So from the brain's perspective, when we aren't intentional, there's a disconnect between unconscious impulses and conscious, wiser abilities of our brain. So we want to be able to set an intention, keeping these motivations in mind so we can strengthen our connection, right? It's easy when we wake up to check our phones, check our our notifications, email, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever else we use. But let's try to just connect, on waking, sit in your bed, chair, be relaxed, close your eyes, make sure that you're straight, but you're not rigid, that you're just waking up. Take 3 long, deep breaths and say, what is my intention for today? How might I show up? What do I need to take care of myself better? How might I feel more connected and fulfilled? Then set that intention, right? Today, I will be kind to myself, be patient, have fun, and eat well. I will pay attention in class. I will not let blank bother me today. And it's important to check in with yourself. Take a breath, revisit that intention. Notice how you become more and more conscious of those intentions each day. And the quality of your mood and your relationships and communications can shift. And again, this is going to take practice, but it's really to a mind shift and a way of living. Mindful eating. I'm really bad at this, right? Sometimes we're just so busy, we're mindless snacking, we're listening to a recording, we're in class, but it's easy to reduce eating to just a sensation of bite, chew, and swallow. So who hasn't eaten a plate full of food without noticing what we're doing, right? So mindful eating includes feeling the taste of your food, appreciate getting it cooked, even if you're just popping something in the microwave, drinking more water. Try not to multitask. I'm really bad at this. I live by myself. Sometimes I don't want to eat at the dining room table, so I just plop myself in front of the TV because I like that extra noise. But sometimes I'm not mindful. So putting down our fork, chewing more, and I said it's like 25 times, right? That's really hard. Sometimes I try. Sometimes eating with your non-dominant hand, um, just savoring the textures and the feelings. But if you don't love it, don't eat it. Try to take your first 3 bites mindfully, experiencing that taste and the flavor and how much you're actually enjoying, or the amount of enjoyment you're receiving from that food. Making a mindful choice about what to eat based on what you really enjoy. And again, it might sound silly and just like, what is she talking about? But the more you pay attention to some of these things and put them into practice, you will become more aware. Just like a mindful pause. Again, this is coming back to that autopilot, right? Sometimes we strive and we're hungry for just silence and stillness in our everyday life and the culture. But there's just so much noise and chaos. And the truth is, our world isn't going to slow down and get less noisy simply because you want it to. You have to commit to take the time and pause. Take breaks that help settle you, and they can help settle you in a matter of minutes. So we have our outer noise and our inner noise. Our outer noise is the stuff we hear in our environment, the TV, music, cars, etc. It's part of our cultural norm. Then we have our inner noise. It's those voices in our head kind of telling us what to do, how to figure it out, what's going on. Our mind is just bouncing back and forth, trying to figure out what is happening. Then we have our outer silence and inner silence. So, right, an outer silence is fairly easy. We can turn off things, the laptop, the TV, music, etc. But it's the inner silence that really helps us. This is where the practice, the pause comes into play. It's important to try to just schedule 1 to 2 minute breaks every hour. Pauses, like happening during natural transitions, during classes, just take that time to pause and breathe. That helps you promote that relaxation and just sit still to help you regain balance. So refreshing triggers regularly. Maybe you decide to use sticky notes to remind yourself of a new intention. It might work for you, but then your fast brain, and old habits take over. So try doing a variety of things to constantly retrain your brain and creating new patterns, right? You might come up with this, if this, then that, to help you create easy reminders to shift into slow brain. So if computer chair, then deep breath. As you shift into mindfulness as you're starting your school day, or before class starts, take a deep breath. This is the intentional action of us being mindful and taking that control over. The mindful workout, right? If you're exercising, lifting weights, running, maybe you're gardening or trying to take care of plants, all these things can be done mindfully. So be clear about your aim, right? As you're tying up your laces, bringing purpose to those laces, what you're envisioning of what you want to have done during your workout. The warm up, simple moves, you're stretching, you're concentrating on your breath to your movement, and you're starting to get into your rhythm. You start to pick up the intensity. And again, you want to coordinate the breath and the movement. And then you can find that groove, but then you again want to challenge yourself, try faster speed, heavier weights, etc. And notice how alert you feel when you're pushing yourself. And that cool down, really take that into consideration. Just in general, when we're working out, the cool down is a very big piece of our body to regulate and repair itself. And just drink some water, drink in your surroundings, bring your body back down, and then take that rest. You're done on the treadmill, just stand there for a moment, recognize what's going on around you, and practice how you feel. You'll feel pretty good about yourself. Paying attention to each thing you do. Now, this is pretty interesting. They always say drink water throughout the day. I try to drink 96 ounces of water every day. I make sure I carry a water bottle with me because there is very little emphasis that we actually put on hydration in workplace and school environments. And we can end up dehydrated and stressed out, right? The benefits of water help us improve our skin, increases our energy levels. The Mayo Clinic suggests that an acceptable target for males is drinking around 12 cups of water a day, and a female, 10.6 cups of water a day. And sometimes it can be difficult when we're very busy and we're not being mindful of getting the water in our bodies. So the graphic here is just talking a little bit about how to do mindful drinking. And again, when you see some of these things, it's a little silly at first, right? I'm lifting up the bottle. I'm using one hand. I'm unscrewing the cap, bring it to my mouth, open my mouth slightly, tip it back, wait till it's half full, close my mouth, taste the water, let it go down my throat, close the water cap, and put down my bottle. Those are very specific steps. And we necessarily don't have to go through that whole process in our head. But if we practice it, we won't have to go through all those steps. It's just about taking that in and just also being healthy and hydrated for ourselves. So again, these are just going to be some mindfulness activities for the long run. There are so many options, but a lot of these I just put here because these were some of my favorites. Gratitude stones, they're actually a physical reminder to remember our blessings, right? Or just what we have. It's feeling thankful and appreciative. Maybe we can have them around family dinners, pass it around before eating. We can share something that we're feeling good or thankful for. They can help us calm us down. It can help be a bedtime ritual, right? Just having that stone there of maybe like, what was the best part of your day? Or you can share the stone, right? Create extra stones. Journaling, it helps us sharpen our focus and it turns our attention inward and it's able to improve our communication skills. It can be used to increase our positive thoughts, decrease negative ones, and it's easy to implement. And journaling doesn't have to be paragraphs and paragraphs. It could be drawing, it could be bullet points, it could be words, just to get some of those emotions out. Gratitude lists, just a greater sense of appreciation and perspective because we don't know everybody's story. We don't know what people are going through. And daily affirmations, they improve our self-esteem and encourage positive outlooks. So these are just some examples. You see the gratitude stones, like you're special, you're so important, you matter. They lift us up. Empowering affirmations. I inspire others. I can do this. I'm getting stronger every day. I choose to be happy. Again, it's being mindful in the present that you are worth, you have worth. And then just some journal prompts. You know, list your five best ways to relax. What are your goals? And it's really good for reflection, right? Maybe you hold on to your journal for a couple of years and you're graduating and you bring it out and you can reflect on how far you've come. So without mental health, our physical, emotional, spiritual health will definitely decline. That's why it's really important to take a look at all the components of our body and ask, am I really taking care of that? Because not being mindful, not being in tune to ourselves, not knowing our needs, some mental health and illnesses can go undetected. It's important to bolster that awareness, and it can help engage in difficult yet healing conversations when you're feeling isolated, right? We want to develop hope. We want to develop self-compassion. We want to be mindful and present with ourselves, making sure we get the proper rest, having coping strategies, etc. Potentially seeing on this mental health hierarchy where we can improve or help another in our development. And when we're under a lot of stress, nourishing our body, mind, and soul, relaxing our muscles, our jaws cleansed, you know, can we maybe deep breathe, or can we take a nap? On our mind, maybe it's keeping a stress journal, developing some healthy habits, maybe going to your school counselor, and then in your soul, that positive self-talk, being able to say no, trying mindfulness. All these ways can help you deal with stress now and in the future. So I just want to say thank you for listening and being with me on this journey about emotions and mindfulness. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or call our office and visit us on our website. Thank you.